While we're on the topic of accessing the server, let me briefly talk to you about file permissions in WordPress. On your server, you'll be able to set the file permissions to different components of your site. And here it's important that those file permissions are correct. Right here, you're seeing a WordPress site, a standard site that's been installed on a standard server. And you can see in my FTP application, the permissions are listed here in the form of numbers. Now, if I select any of the files here that say 0644 and go to File Permissions inside FileZilla, you'll be able to see what all this means. The 6 refers to the owner permissions, and the owner has permission to read and write content, but not execute content. The owner in this case is the server itself. The next number, 4, applies to the group that is allowed to access this content. This is a server term that refers to the group that's within the server itself. And the group should only have the ability to read the content, not write, not execute. The last number, 4, which applies to public permissions, is maybe the most important one. These are all the people that can get to your site from the outside. And it's very important that these people can only read the content, not write content to the server, and not execute. Now, I know you're going to ask, but when people access my sites, they're able to leave comments, right? So aren't they writing to the server? No, they're writing to the database server. This is the file server that contains all the files. And the only user who should be allowed to write to the file server is WordPress itself. Because WordPress can install themes and plugins and upload files and do other things. And that's why the owner has write permission while everyone else has just read permission. So that's files. In addition, in WordPress, you also have a set of folders. And you'll notice that all the folders are set to 755. So if I open that and look at file permissions, you'll see that for the folders, the owner has read, write, and execute permission. And for the group and the public, they have read permission and execute permission. This is simply because the execute command is the act of getting into the folder. So you have to be able to gain access to the folder, but you can't write stuff to the folder unless you are WordPress itself. These are the default settings for WordPress, and these are the security settings. Any folder should have 0755, and any file should have 0644. The great thing about how WordPress is configured now is when you install WordPress or when WordPress updates, all the files will automatically get 0644 attributed and all the folders will automatically get 0755. So even if you somehow messed up these settings, WordPress itself on the next update will fix them for you. Knowing this, you should also know that in some rare cases, your host may go in and change these settings and make the security settings even higher. And in some rare cases, they may do things like change the WP config settings so that WordPress can't change the WP config file. If that happens, you may run into a situation where you need to change the file yourself, and then you have to actually go grab the file, pull it out of the server, change it on your computer, and push it back up, or go and momentarily change the settings here from 06 whatever to 0644, just so that WordPress can write to it, and then go and revert back to the stronger security settings. This is fairly advanced, and like I said, WordPress will do this by default, but if you ever wonder if your site is acting funny and you wonder if someone is gaining access to it, the quickest way to check that is to simply go in through any FTP application and look at the file permissions and make sure all your files are at 0644 and all your folders are at 0755.